And it's Andrew Jenkins here, and yeah, warm welcome to everybody dialing in, hopefully, and we're just waiting for the feed to come up, and we're never quite sure whether we're going live or not, and we've got some audio problems this morning on Martin's side, so we're just trying to fix that as well. Oh, it's all been going. It has indeed. So I'm Andrew Jenkins, short countdown timer here. We can't wait for today's groovy show, folks. So we're hanging out with Martin Wood, a SAP expert and beekeeper for kicks. How about that? We're going to somehow magically weave all of those topics together if we can. So it's going to be very interesting. What could possibly go wrong with that? So there we go. There's the feed coming up. Tap to join. Lovely. Come on, baby. Here we are. Lovely. I think we're on. Lovely. Ildy's on. Great. Super duper. Phew. 113th show, folks. So give us a quick wave, Martin. A quick hello.
Hey, evening everyone. Hope you're well.
Yeah, we've got a slight Dalek, but okay. Yeah, we're coming through. Sarah, good morning, Mrs. Moderator.
Good morning. Happy to see the feeds working.
Happy to see the feeds working. Yeah, we've got a few audio issues this morning, so hopefully we'll be all right. So with Martin, Sarah, me, Marketing CX in the background, hopefully. Ghost this week's sponsors. That's today's team, folks. Wow, that deserves a wow, doesn't it? If I can find it. Wow, there we go. Super duper. Right, here's Ghost's sponsorship video. Boom! There we go. We love that. And hi, gang. It's Leaders Live Showtime, folks. Hurrah and huzzah! I love that. And it's just after 8:45. I'm laughing at my own jokes. 8:45 a.m. here in the UK, and we are live with Leaders Live, spreading the love, folks. Spreading the love. Yabba dabba do. So I hope you enjoyed that groovy opener intro, gang. And this week we're delighted that we're being powered by Ghost, this week's sponsor. So look out for who's sponsoring each week. And please let us know if our audio is coming through okay too. We're going to have to test Martin in a minute, but we'll come back to that in a moment. And if you're new to Leaders Live, a warm welcome to you. And Leaders Live is a dynamic talk show that generates business through networking, through community, and through extraordinary conversations. And as I mentioned in the countdown, I'm Andrew Jenkins. I host this weekly interactive live stream show called Leaders Live. So that's built up an awesome community of like-minded leaders, just like you boys and girls on at the moment. So that's fantastic. So please don't be shy. We'd love you to introduce yourself as you're doing already. Join in, interact with the comments, chat, ask questions as we're going along. That's the way we roll. And we've got 3 simple rules. A, safe community, folks, mutual respect, and please no selling in the room. And our motto is I to the power of we. And listen, if you... one really easy way that you can show support for this free show. We put a lot of time and effort into this. Boy, did we do during the build-up. You can use the little app called buymeacoffee.com, which is buymeacoffee.com/leaderslive, or one word. And you buy me 5 and you get a free half-hour coaching session, folks. And all proceeds go back into the show. And Sarah will put the link into the feed shortly. She can do that. And you get a shout out too. So all good. And I can't do a demo this morning because I forgot to set it up. So there we go. But a little thing comes up with buymeacoffee.com. It's dead cool. And we love it when you show us some love too. And as I said, all proceeds go back into the show. So smash those likes, folks, and those thumbs up. We'd really appreciate that. It keeps us motivated. Love that bell. So phew, put it all together. What do you got? Bibbidi bobbidi poo. And you'll be singing that song all day. So let's just introduce Martin, our guest, our hangout guest this morning. And our theme is Step into the Hive Mind, Uncover the Buzzing Business of Bees, and how that then translates into business practices and processes. Good morning, Martin.
Good morning. I hope the sound delay isn't hampering us too much, but hello everyone.
Great. Yeah, we're coming a little bit in and out, but I think we can live with that. That's fine. So, Martin, look, give us a quick intro, Martin, and so sort of 4 direction, as well as being a SAP expert and a business process specialist. Martin, you've got a fascinating hobby about keeping bees. And today we hope to cleverly and seamlessly juxtaposition all of those things together and to create some learning lessons and synergies between beekeeping and business processes today. And hopefully that's our plan, or it might just fail, but who knows? We'll see how it goes. So yeah, give us a little bit of an introduction, Martin, for yourself.
So yeah, as Andrew said, my name is Martin Wood.
Mm,
My day job is essentially I'm um, an SAP finance architect. I've been helping businesses implement SAP software and underpinning their business process improvement projects.
mm.
And I've been doing that for clients for the last 25 years.
25 years, my gosh.
25 years, I know,
That's a long
I know.
time.
Don't be old enough.
Yeah. Yeah, still looks a young man. And look, we had a little bit of issue this morning because Martin sort of texted me this morning at 7 o'clock and said, one of my dogs has gone missing. Now, Martin has got two beautiful dogs. Here they are. And I just wanted to show them here because Maisie, the youngest one there on the right, ran away this morning straight through his legs, didn't have the lead on, and and enjoyed his freedom. So poor old Martin was running around the countryside trying to get his dog back ready for the show. So and it's always nice when things work out. So we just thought we'd honour that with these two beautiful dogs. Maddie and Maisie are your two dogs. Is that right, Martin?
It's Molly and Maisie.
Molly,
So
sorry, Molly and Maisie,
Molly's,
just
yeah,
testing. Yeah. Maddie was last week's guest. Apologies for
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So, brilliant.
That's okay. I mean, they say owning a dog is supposed to relax you and bring your heart rate down and give you all those kind of health benefits. But when you've got a 7-month Springer Spaniel who takes off whenever she wants to, I'm not sure it's quite so good for the old heart rate.
Yeah, indeed, absolutely. Yeah, so your heart was pumping this time, and there's a couple of comments in the feed saying, "Is it me or is it the audio's unstable?" No, the audio's slightly unstable this morning. We're going to bear with it, and hopefully it all comes back. And yes, Martin, you did find it, thankfully. So there we go. We'll come to the feed comments in a moment. But look, we also said that we're going to sort of cleverly juxtaposition some bits this morning. So talking about beekeeping and how that works with business processes. So we're going to do quite a bit of sort of synergistic learning from both bits. So here's a little bit about Martin introducing his apiaries, which is about beekeeping. Here goes the video. So I hope you enjoy this little very short video just to introduce beekeeping to you. 1 second.
Hi, Martin here. Good afternoon and welcome to West Lancashire, where I live, on this lovely sunny October afternoon. And I just want to quickly show you my home apiary. So I've got 2 honeybee hives just outside my front door here, and you may not recognize this as a beehive. You may be more familiar with that white painted box with the slatted outside and the apex roof, very kind of traditional looking, and those kind of hives do exist, but most beekeepers actually keep them in these more simple, these are called national hives, and they're made up of, at the bottom we've got a floor and a landing board for the bees to come in, land and crawl into the main box here. This is the deep box, which is the brood box. So this is where the queen lives and where she raises all the new baby bees. Just above that we've got a queen excluder, and that's a metal grid. In fact, let me just show you one here. So it's a thin slatted grid made up of lots and lots of metal slats, and they're a very specific size of slat. They're big enough to allow the worker honeybees to move upwards in the hive, but the slats are too small for the bigger queen to make her way up. So basically the queen gets trapped in this brood box and she stays there for all of her life, which is exactly where we want her to be. And so above the queen excluder we've got a shallower box here, and this is a honey super. So this is filled with frames of wax which the bees build out, and they store all the honey in there. So because the queen can't make her way up into that box, she doesn't get to lay any eggs. So this box is just basically full of honey at the end of the season, which as a beekeeper we can extract. And then on top of that we've got the roof. So there we go, a very quick tour of my home apiary.
There we go. Thank you very much, Martin. So, hope you found that useful. We loved having Martin put that together, and just a little bit about bees. And we've got some of Martin's honey, and I forgot to bring it up here to show you, but we've got a lovely jar of Martin's pure honey. It's absolutely fantastic. Good morning, Mrs. Moderator. How are you this morning,
Good
Sarah?
morning. I'm very well, thank you, this morning. Apart from the glitches on the
The
tech,
glitches on the
does-
tech.
you do like to get me panicking.
What's going on in the feed then, Sarah?
Everybody's a bit quiet, to be honest. So, Mateus, thank you for letting me know about the sound. Yes, we have got a few hiccups. Ildy, good to see you on. Good morning, Neil Jones. There's a name that's not commented much.
Oh, hello,
before.
Neil.
So
Lovely.
Good morning, Neil. So yeah, I think we're all. Oh yeah, Rebecca says trapping the queen. That's unfair. That's life, Rebecca, I'm afraid.
That's called commercialism.
Here we go, like this. Kieran says, bees are like a nice set of financials. Without them, we'd be all wiped out in a year, right?
Oh,
Like
very
that. Well
nice,
done,
Kieran. There we go. Brilliant. Brilliant. Very good.
There
I
you
mean,
go.
there's probably something in that, isn't there, Martin? Just out of interest, just jumping in there.
Yeah, I mean, they say that I mean, bees are definitely under a lot of threat at the moment. Lots of external pressures on them, mainly from us humans, to be perfectly honest. They reckon that the honeybee is responsible for pollinating between a third and two-thirds of all our crops that supply direct or indirect food supplies to us. So we wipe the bees out, then I think it was Einstein said that within 2 years we'd be in big
doo-doos.
problems.
Yeah, there we go. There we go, folks. So, yeah, back to you, Sarah. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's about it. Just
That's about it.
Rebecca wants to know, what have bees taught you about business, Martin?
Oh,
That's
there
Rebecca
we go.
very nicely going. Stop fanning about and can we get back on track?
Can we get back on track? There we go. Well said. Well said.
Yeah, well, there's definitely lots of parallels. We're learning more and more all the time about bees, bee colonies, and how incredibly complex they are. But they definitely, as a species, they offer some real insights, I think, into back into businesses, how we run our businesses, core business processes. And I think it's always useful to, when we're looking at how to improve things within a business, it's always good to look not only within best in class within an industry, but also outside of our industry as well. And it's probably not too much of a quantum leap, I don't think, to then take another step outside and say, well, what can we learn outside, not only outside of our own industry, but potentially outside of our own species. And there's a load of fascinating research that can give us insights into how bees run their colonies, and they essentially seem to run them like the best run businesses.
Best run businesses. I love that. I love that. Thank you. And we've got a quick audience question as well, Martin. I don't know whether you've got that handy or if you want me to say it for you, Martin.
If you want to go ahead, Andre.
Yeah, no problem. Just because the audio is a bit rough today. So before we dive into today's topic, let's hear your thoughts as the audience, please, folks. So this is where you can interact with us. Why do you think 80% of business improvement projects fail to deliver the intended improvement? So we're back on business improvement, and cleverly we're going to weave in the bee story into this as well. And share your insights and comments below. So let's kick off with this discussion together. So why do you think 80% of business improvement projects fail to deliver the intended improvements? Share your insights and comments below, please. Thank you very much. There it is in the feed. So let's bring up Martin now. It's a slight delay in the feed. I don't know why that just came up there. Let's just bring up Martin again now then. Okay. So we did this poll the other day, Martin, about business processes. And the question we asked was exactly the same question. Why do you think 80% of business improvement projects fail to deliver their intended improvements? And 32% said lack of proper planning, poor collaboration, another 30%, and resistance to change, another 30-odd%, and quality, cost, time control, 7%. What say you, Martin, to that?
Yeah, that's some really interesting feedback. And
Mm.
I've been working on SAP implementations, which basically underpin process improvements. Been implementing those kind of projects for
Mm.
25 years, and those are very, very common themes. I think the poor collaboration and comms is a real headline one, to be perfectly
Mm.
honest. And we see that time and time again, and it's strange that over the years we don't seem to be getting particularly better at those kind of issues. Um,
Mm.
I mean, looping back um, to the question of collaboration. I mean, these big process improvement projects, they're they're large, which involves a lot of different departments, a lot of people, a lot
Mm.
of personnel, and they're long. They're
Yeah.
typically 2-3 years long, and getting the right collaboration and comms in across that many departments, that many people over that length of time is a real challenge.
Real challenge. Yeah, I think you're right. I'd be interested to see what people are saying in the feed. And there's a few bits coming through already, so don't be shy, folks. So while we're just waiting for the feed to catch up, talking about, taking a lead from our poll here, and talking about classic project failures. Let's kick off with that discussion. You've already mentioned the collaboration piece. What when it comes to collaboration and long-term planning, say for instance, taking those two top ones, what can we learn from bees and apply to business, Martin?
So when we look at collaboration, one of the things that when we look inside a typical bee colony,
Mm.
something they do really well is division of labor. And there's there's two kind of sides to that. Um, there's specialisms within the colony. So each female bee, when it's born, it has an initial role, and it starts off being a nurse bee,
All
and
right.
that bee will look after all the newly hatched baby bees. But then after a while, it will migrate its role, and it will become a housekeeper bee. So it'll start cleaning up the cells ready for the queen to lay, but then it'll move on to a different role. So it might be kind of a DIY bee going around fixing holes in the hive. There are undertaker bees
Wow.
moving dead bees out of the colony, believe it or not. Um, then there are guard bees who are protecting the entrance to the hive from sort of invaders like wasps. And the final role of the female honeybee will be a forager, which is probably the bees that we know and love, the ones that are going out into the fields, into the gardens, collecting the honey and the nectar and water and bringing them back into the hive. So each of those roles is very, very specific and very skilled, very focused. But it's interesting that the same bee will go through all those different roles, and so they
Mm.
kind of have an understanding of the coordination between all those different roles. And I think on large projects, what we tend to do, and even in businesses, once those improvements have been implemented, we tend to silo people. People
Mm.
become specialists. They might be a procurement specialist, or they might be a warehousing specialist, or a finance specialist.
Mm.
And we tend to keep people in those silos, which is great to a certain degree because they have skills and experience, and that's built up over a number of years. But the big problem then is a really class leading business process is end to end.
Mm.
It might start from research and development through into manufacturing, procurement. Underpinning that is all the finance. And by keeping everyone in their specialist silos, it really hampers the cross departmental communication.
Yeah.
And so even though we might implement a class leading process that goes from A to Z, we're almost putting up false barriers from between the departments communicating.
Yeah. Sort of that lack of understanding that comes by appreciating what other people have to do in the process. So a business problem isn't just one person's problem or one department's problem. It affects lots and lots of departments all at the same time. And I suppose the problem is that if we don't understand those different viewpoints of the business, you talked about SAP business, actually that can be to our detriment. Whereas the bees, they do an apprenticeship, right? I mean, it's brilliant. I mean, I remember as an apprenticeship, I went through every single department in our business, so I got to appreciate the business from being on site all the way through to the design department. I was an engineer at the time. So I got to appreciate everything, every little nuance from buying to planning to implementing to designing to specifying to estimating. And maybe that's something that we're missing in today's business, Martin.
I think we are. I mean, when I
Mm.
started in industry sort of 30 plus years ago, the graduate scheme then was similar to what you were saying.
Yeah.
I came in as an IT graduate, as a trainee systems analyst, but we spent time on the factory floor, we spent time in the marketing departments, sales, procurement, engineering, finance. And okay, it was only perhaps, a month or 2 months in each of those sections, but you definitely, as well as networking, you build up very quickly a network of contacts in each of those areas. But you
Right.
did get a real understanding that, sitting in the procurement department, that the information you're putting in a purchase order directly affects financial reporting.
Absolutely. And
It's that
getting
old,
paid, getting your payroll salary.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's that old adage, rubbish in, rubbish out. It doesn't matter. You could have the best IT system in the world. At the end of it, it's as far as reporting and metrics and using that to plan your business, it's only ever as good as the information you put in. So if a department is literally just doing their job and thinking, okay, I've got to raise this purchase order. It doesn't matter which codes I put in, doesn't matter which cost center I put in. I just want the damn thing to save so that I can order my materials. But of course, the knock-on effects downstream is that you're polluting your information and you're diluting the effectiveness of your business reporting.
Indeed. So actually, yeah. And the nice thing about the honeybees, just going back to them again, is that they understand each of those processes, from being a nurse all the way to being a forager and all the roles in between. And so they graduate from one role to another. And that's something we used to do in our businesses and we don't anymore. And Martin, I just wanted to make the link to you're a SAP expert. Just tell us very briefly, what is SAP and how does it relate to this particular topic, trying to weave in a third thread here.
So for people who don't know, SAP was established by 5 ex-IBM colleagues in Germany, 51 years ago now. They were working on a project for IBM to essentially develop what used to be known as wall-to-wall software. So business software that supported the business in every aspect. So from warehousing, manufacturing, financials, procurement, the whole thing. That project got canned, but they thought they were onto such a good thing. They took the brave step and actually set up their own company, which became SAP. So SAP is both the name of the company, the name of the product. So that, as I say, that was about 50 years ago. Now today, moving on, they reckon that roughly 65% of American businesses use SAP, and that about 90% of the Fortune 500 use SAP.
Wow.
And it's estimated that 77% of the world's transaction revenue touches an SAP system.
Wow.
So from those original 5 employees, they've now got 100,000 global employees, and that's just working for the company, SAP itself. And the revenue 2 years ago, that's the latest figures I've got, was touching around about 28 billion euros.
Wow. So yeah, a real business scale up success, really, Martin. Let's give you a moment just to kind of catch your breath a minute. Let's go back to Mrs. Moderator here. Where is she? Come on. There we go. Where is she? Ding, doing. There we are. Sarah, what's going on the feed? There seems to be lots
Oh,
going on in the feed.
lots going on the feed.
Mm.
A real theme. Yeah, a lot of people agreeing. So, Maria, lack of purpose at the individual level. Employees are not motivated to change at a personal level. They're told rather than asked.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's something
people
about
don't
that.
like
Isn't
being told, do they?
there? No, indeed. Well done, Maria. Thank
Matthias,
morning.
the core reason is that the improvements are solely decided by the management without consulting the lower level employees. Often they're implemented straight away without notice. Some create tension at work. When employees don't feel involved, they don't feel valued. In the end, you must let everyone know about the changes, how they will be implemented, why they are, and prepare employees well in advance. Absolutely. Um, Kathy Heath, isn't the failure of the collaboration sitting up at the exec sponsor level effectively a lack of a queen bee?
Oh, what say you, Martin?
Oh,
Oh, I
oh,
like
that's
that.
that's
Oh,
very nicely
S-
brought back. Yeah, I mean,
segue. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely beautiful. Yeah, I mean, there's two ends of the spectrum there, aren't there? There's
Mm,
the giving individual employees not only responsibility but recognition that they're the guys at the coalface. They're the
mm,
ones who really understand the nitty gritty. They understand how the business is really running down at the transactional level. And if you don't engage those kind of people, not only on the day-to-day running of the business, but on any big business process improvement project, then those kind of directives from tend tend to come quite rightly from kind of directors of each of the kind of the sections of the business,
mm.
and they can sometimes be quite out of touch with what's really happening down in the coalface. And kind of bringing that back to what we might learn out of a bee colony.
Mm.
Bees are really, really good at collective decision making, which might
Oh,
sound a bit odd from these tiny little insects, but it's the individual bees who are constantly giving the feedback, and those are the ones who are then adjusting to change within the colony all the time. So an example might be if we've got a really hot spell of weather, the hive temperature tends to get too hot to run efficiently. Who's recognizing that? It's the individual worker bees who are inside the hive, and
okay.
so they'll adjust to that almost on an hourly basis. Because if the hive is running too warm, the wax in the hive starts to melt, and that essentially is disintegrating the whole structure of the organization, the colony. The colony will collapse. So they
Mm.
very, very quickly adapt to that. They communicate, so the house bees communicate that to the flying bees, who are their older sisters, if you like, and they start sending them out and saying, don't collect any more honey. We don't need more honey. What we need is water.
Wow.
So the behavior of the flying bees will change, and they'll suddenly start bringing water into the hive. They'll store that water, and then a whole bunch of bees will change their behavior from being housekeeping bees or guard bees or nurse bees, and they'll all start fanning. And as they
My
fan their
gosh.
wings,
Yeah.
it passes over the water and brings the temperature of the hive down. So
Wow.
again, it's not the
Clever.
queen bee at the top telling them what to do. It's those at the coalface who are realizing we've got a problem here, change the behavior of the bees around them, and then get
Wow.
equilibrium back.
What a brilliant story of adaptability to change, folks. So that's absolutely brilliant. Let's just bring some of the comments in. What's going on, Sarah? What else is going on? Thank you for that, Martin. Brilliant analogy.
Yeah, Neil Jones comments, it's all well and good talking about giving graduates a perspective of the business, but when high flyers are recruited into the middle or senior management, they don't necessarily have the hands-on perspective, and they can be the silo mind problem.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So if you don't know what happens at the coal face, how can
Mm,
you communicate and relate to it?
yeah.
I think you've answered this one. Kieran says, Martin, have you had to deal with any issues when your bees don't seem happy about something or want a new role?
I want a pay rise.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
not sure that the research shows that the bees have some kind of voluntary career shift that they go to. I don't think there are any HR departments in a bee colony. I could be
Mm.
wrong, but yeah, they do graduate through the different roles, and as I said previously, sometimes they'll regress back into different roles that they did before, simply because that's what the colony needs.
Needs. Got it.
I'm not sure they put any request in to suddenly become the queen bee,
No.
to be honest, but that's an interesting angle.
That is an interesting angle, and interesting. How is the queen chosen? Do we know that even?
Yeah, we do. So
Mm.
it starts off from the bee colony decides to raise a new queen.
Yeah.
So for example, if we've got a queen in the hive and she's starting to fail, they tend to live. The queen bees live for about maximum of 5 or 6 years, but they're only super productive for 2 or 3 years. So if the
Okay.
queen is starting to get a bit old, then the colony will realize this. I guess it's a bit like having a CEO of a company that's kind of getting a bit long in the tooth and is no longer best for the business. They kind of politely encourage her, in this instance, to leave the hive. They're quite decisive about how they do it. They'll actually kill the old queen, which is a bit
Wow.
harsh, but I'm not sure we should be culling our
CEOs.
CEOs, but
Right.
retiring them off for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the bees will basically prepare to raise a new queen. They'll build what's called a queen cell, which is a much bigger cell. And you may have heard of a substance called royal jelly. The nurse
Royal jelly.
will fill that big cell with a specific substance, which is very, very rich in proteins and enzymes, and that's called royal jelly. So when the outgoing queen, she basically lays her own successor. She'll lay an egg in that queen cell, and that bigger cell, which is filled up with lots of extra nutrients, then hatches out as a big queen bee, and that's the new queen that will run the colony.
How interesting, and very similar to our own business practices. So the CEO gets voted out by the by the shareholders, I guess. In some ways, it's probably not quite as cruel as that, but it's quite interesting analogy that. And just bring in the moderator again, Sarah. So there's a few things going on in the feed. Let's just pick those up and then move on.
Yeah, Anita Cecilia says competition between departments creates a lot of
dot. Fill in
some
the
of it
gaps.
good, some of it not so good.
Yeah, indeed, I like that. Nice one, Anita.
Kieran's commenting, a lovely piece of marketing from SAP is their strap line. The best run businesses run SAP.
Oh,
So even a solopreneur or a small business can back themselves with a simple message. It's about getting your branding right, isn't it?
yeah. And what say you, Martin? I mean, what sort of size does SAP normally sort of work in businesses? Practice can be very small or very big, or what's the normal practice, Martin?
So historically, SAP is definitely targeted the big companies. As I said, 90% of Fortune 500 businesses run SAP.
Yeah.
FTSE 100, again, similar kind of figures. So historically, it does tend to be sold to the bigger enterprises.
The bigger ones.
They do have, yeah, they do and have had for a number of years ambitions to also sell into SMEs. With varied success. They used to have a product called Business One, which is kind of a cut down version of the full ERP package, and that was specifically sold to SMEs. And they've got in their latest release of SAP, they've got a variant called SAP Business by Design, which again is looking at the smaller kind of market. The challenge has always been with SAP, I think, that the cost of licensing. So it's not even the cost of buying the product in the first place. Of course, you need to be able to implement that, and those tend to be fairly lengthy projects, which can be expensive and put smaller businesses off. But the issue has always been the licensing. But that's the cost of that, and the model for that is changing. They're very much shifting from what we call on-premise, where you look after the product on either your own hardware and servers or outsourced to something like Google or Amazon. But they're moving very much into the cloud. That's where the future lies in SAP.
Mm.
And I think because they're hosting now on the cloud and it's hosted by SAP themselves, licensing costs are starting to come down and make it a lot more amenable to smaller businesses.
Okay. So it's still expensive, but it's getting there. There are products out there that can match smaller businesses and their ambitions to grow and to. I mean, I guess one of the things is, when you turn from a very small business into a medium-sized business, you might start to need this kind of architecture, Martin, as you're growing and
Yeah,
developing.
absolutely. And typically a smaller business will start with, whatever they need to support the business.
Mm.
It may even be, on the finance side, it might start on spreadsheets and then move to something like Sage or Zero. Um, but as you buy in more bits of software to look after, say, procurement or R&D or marketing or reporting, you start building up. And what typically happens, you start building up quite a complicated infrastructure or architecture of software to support all your processes. And then it gets really tricky to get them to start talking to each other. And you seem
Mm.
to spend as much time sort of patching up and putting sticking plasters over, systems talking to each other. And that's really when you need to sit down and have a rethink of where your strategy is going architecturally.
Yeah.
And products like SAP come into their own because, of course, they basically come in and say, okay, we've got a module for everything you could possibly think of, and they all talk to each other.
Yeah, it might mean that you have to change some of your business practices to make it work, which is often a sticking point and a sticking plaster for a lot of businesses, right? There's that unique bits of our business. They can't fit into a system, but actually what you argue is, of course they can. Look at the bees and look at what they do. They have a single system that works.
Yeah, exactly. And it's probably the biggest kind of barrier when you try to put these kind of process improvement projects into place. Every single
Mm.
client I've ever worked with over the last 30 years said the
Mm.
same thing. Yes, you can try and introduce best practice, but we're different.
Yeah,
Every single one.
every one of them, we're
We don't
different.
do things
Mm.
exactly. You can try and sell us best practice, and that's all well and good, but we do things differently here.
Differently. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I'm sorry, but you don't.
You don't know, because business is business, right? And there's the interesting challenge for us. And again, how our fixed mindset gets in the way here of potentially business improvement, and then we end up bastardizing the system. That's a technical term. Just because we want to make it work, because the way we've always done things, right? This is the way we've always done things. We'll continue that way, but it's not always the best way. Martin, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, probably
Mm.
back in the, going back 10, 15 years, even further, maybe,
Mm.
every SAP project that I worked on had a huge amount of customization. And that seemed
Yeah.
to be the way, the way of the world then. And I think there was a couple of reasons for that. One, as I said before, this approach that every business would come in and say, well, it's all well and good, sell us this package, sell us best practice, but really at the end of the day, we're special, we're different, we do things differently. So you're
Yeah.
going to need to bend the system. And I think unfortunately as well, consultancies who go in and were implementing SAP saw this as a revenue stream. Every time they, change the code, bespoke interfaces, didn't use standard practices, it meant they were busily employed putting in changes all the time, putting in bespoke fixes, and that was a good revenue stream.
Yeah.
So it seemed to be quite a philosophy on these projects, but for quite a while. But the tide is definitely turning now. SAP themselves are rolling out much more better and robust standard plug-in practices and processes. And I think businesses themselves have got savvy to this, and they're saying, okay, well, there are other people in our industry who've managed to implement, whether it be SAP or another software, and okay, it's not quite out of the box plug and play, but it is
Fair enough.
adopting standard processes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, a lot more readily.
I like that. Adopting standard processes. Now, let's go back to the bees again and this whole thing about resistance to change that we're just picking on now, and you've mentioned about, which I didn't know, that in droughts or very hot temperatures, bees will start to signal that they need water for the hive, and they know how to do that instinctively. That's just really interesting. Where else it's just thinking about business improvement projects. What else can we learn from bees that enable us to be better at dealing with change, Martin?
There's something that the bees do every year, which is
Mm,
really interesting. Is I mean that they keep an eye on what their end goal is. So
yeah.
the end goal
Ooh,
for a bee colony is essentially to survive from one year to the next, but to actually increase the number of bees out there in the world. So they're actually their very end goal is for proliferation at the end of the
wow.
day. Um, and
World
so one of the
domination.
things that they will, yeah, well, precisely.
Mm,
And one of the things that a bee colony will do, much to the frustration of the beekeeper, is each season they will attempt to swarm.
swarm. Oh, tell us about a swarm. How
And
does that
by
work?
that I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
So essentially, they'll get to a point in the season,
Mm,
usually in sort of late spring, early summer,
okay.
where the hive decides, well, actually, we've got enough bees in this colony now. A good bee colony will be somewhere in the region of 60,000 bees in that box,
Wow.
and they'll get to a certain size, and they'll recognise actually it's best for us as a colony if we try and set up another colony elsewhere. And
Mm,
so what will happen is the bees inside the colony will start um, starving the queen bee, thinning her down, making her ready to actually leave the colony and fly out.
wow.
And they will also, at that point, when I described about them creating the queen cell to raise a new bee, at
Mm,
that point they'll start creating that queen cell ready to raise a new queen. And they'll get to a certain point. Scout bees will leave the hive. They'll fly around for a couple of miles outside the hive, and they'll find a suitable place to set up a new colony. And they'll come back and say, "Okay, we think we found one." And
wow.
at that point, they'll force the queen out of the hive, and most of your flying bees, i.e., the ones that are good for the beekeeper because they're the ones collecting all the honey, they will fly out with the queen. So you'll lose
Wow.
most of your colony. But they'll try and set up elsewhere, and then they'll raise the new queen in your remaining colony. So now you've gone from one colony
To
to
two.
two, and that's the strategy that the bees have to keep multiplying their population.
So this is like a coffee shop starting to go from one coffee shop to two to three, and then to regionalize and move out that way, or church planting, or even a management buyout. I'm wondering, or is that going too far?
Yeah, and it's keeping an eye on what your strategy is. Now, it could
Yeah.
be coming back to your coffee shop analogy.
Mm,
Actually, all you wanted to do was set up Holly's coffee shop in the village.
yeah.
You wanted to bring more customers in and maximize that, but that's where you want to stay.
Yeah.
But if you're Costa Coffee or Starbucks or whatever,
Mm,
your ambition is not only to maximize revenue within each store, but actually you've got that plan to increase 25%, 30%. They're always got that eye on increasing their footfall within stores, but also increasing regionally and putting pressure on the competition. Costa's face to face with Starbucks, and one of their strategies is basically to dominate the high streets.
mm. Interesting, fascinating. And when a hive splits like this, does it create a small business problem that it takes a while to then scale that up, and it takes a couple of seasons to get established, or how does it work, Martin?
So it causes two problems. One, it
Mm.
causes a problem for the beekeeper who's left with a much reduced size of colony. Um,
So your
so
honey
as,
yield goes down.
yeah,
Yeah, bummer. Yeah.
yeah, basically the little blighters, because the other thing they do, of course, is just before they leave the hive,
Yeah.
all the flying bees gorge themselves on all the honey,
Oh, so
because
that's
they need to. They steal your honey crop. So it's a double blow to the beekeeper, which is why we
mm.
have certain strategies to stop that from happening.
Ah.
Um, but yeah, so it gives a bit of a problem to the beekeeper, because he needs
Mm,
to, okay, he's lost his honey crop probably, but he also needs to look after that colony, especially if that swarm happens towards the end of the season, because you have to
mm,
get the bees through the winter, so you might have to feed them.
yeah.
But unfortunately, the bees have caused themselves a problem by thinking they can set up a colony out in a tree stump, or under the eaves of a barn or something. Because unfortunately, our bees today, and this is pretty much a worldwide problem, have got endemic problems with varroa mite and disease.
Yeah.
And so they don't actually fare terribly well out in the wild. Most colonies of bees who do that won't survive more than 1 or 2 seasons before they
Gosh.
get. So we do need the hobbyist beekeeper to try and keep the bees in their boxes, and to treat them for the various pests and diseases that
Pesticides.
we have.
Yeah. Interesting that they then become dependent on man as another part of the ecosystem. Then that's interesting in itself. And I'm just wondering if you had a run and standby hive, so you had another hive, that wasn't actually populated, would another colony split and move into say the spare hive, for example, which is just a few meters away, perhaps? Would that work, or do they go elsewhere?
They would quite often, if they found an empty hive in another beekeeper's colony,
Ah,
or apiary,
mm,
they would go and populate that one if you were lucky. Yeah, so it is a bit of a strategy during the season to put empty hives, and you can create something called a lure hive,
mm.
which is an empty hive, and you place within that hive a certain pheromone which
Okay.
attracts
Ah.
wild or swarmed bees in. So that can be a bit of a strategy as well.
Okay, so the purposeful strategy to attract bees, and very interesting to create that ecosystem. Are there any other factors that we can apply to our business processes that bees just do instinctively, and we could probably pick up and do stuff with as well, Martin, that we're not really doing at the moment, or perhaps some companies are but others aren't?
Yeah, there's loads of things we can
Mm.
learn. So something that bees are absolutely fantastic at is inbuilt quality control.
Oh, Q and
So
A, yeah,
yeah, and I think quality control was quite a thing back in the 90s
it
in
was. I
businesses,
remember. Yeah,
but
B
I
seven
think
five
it's been,
or something.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think we suffered in business from
Mm.
from kind of um, over complicating it, making it too much of a paper exercise, too difficult. Um, it became a bit of a dirty word, really,
Yeah.
quality and quality control. But if you build it into everyone's role, in a less bureaucratic way, and build it into day-to-day practices, then that for me is the real way to introduce it. Um, and bees show this absolutely perfectly in everything they do. So, for example, they're absolute perfectionists. When they
Wow.
build the honeycomb, you probably all know the hexagonal shape of honeycomb. Now, bees build that out from scratch. They basically um, produce wax in their abdomens, and they build these hexagonal structures.
Incredible. Incredible.
And if you take a microscope to them, they're absolutely identical from one to the next to the next. And
Incredible, isn't it?
there's two reasons for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one is because that's a very strong physical structure, so it can bear a lot of weight. Because during the season, when honey is stored in these things, they weigh an absolute ton. They really do, and it's
Mm.
amazing that these are made of wax and they don't collapse. And that's because they're very stringent on building that to exact specifications. And the other thing is that it maximizes
Incredible.
storage as well. It's a
Yeah.
very efficient way.
And it's a perfect
Um,
structure for weight bearing as well, right, Martin? A natural hexagon shape,
yeah,
right?
exactly. And bees have kind of worked this out over. I mean,
Amazing, isn't it?
the
Yeah.
honeybees that we have are kind of, they reckon they first came about 6 to 7 million years ago. So they've had
Wow.
time to evolve,
To evolve. Yeah.
essentially best practice. What works out best, and they come up with this hexagon structure, and they're very stringent. And every bee knows how to build this structure, and it's
Amazing.
any hexagon that doesn't come up to scratch, they'll tear it down because they recognize amongst them that's not good practice. So
Good heavens. Yeah.
every bee has got inbuilt quality control, and they show
Isn't
that
that
in a
amazing?
manner of different ways.
Isn't that incredible? That's just, I mean, that's just like getting our products right. Consummate perfectionists, folks. Just give you a quick break for now. Sarah, what's going on the feed, and then we'll start to close out the show a little bit.
Yeah, Rebecca's got a question for you. When the bees eat the honey, can you see the signs of that and do something about it? A bit like seeing high staff churn and doing something about that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic question, Rebecca. So so one of the key activities we do as a beekeeper is we inspect the hive during the height of the season. We're inspecting the hive every week, and we're looking for certain signs. Are the bees building up in their numbers in the right way? If they're not, we might have a problem with an aging queen, for example. Have they got enough stores in the hive to take them from one week to the next?
Yeah.
If not, we might supplement their feed. But as you say, Rebecca, one of the things we're looking out for is those queen cells being built. Because if the bees are starting to create queen cells,
They're on the
then
move.
they're going to probably, they're on the move and they're looking to swarm. And as a beekeeper, we don't want the bees to swarm. So that's something we're looking out for every single week. And if we catch it, there's some manipulation that we can do, and we produce what's called an artificial swarm. So essentially, we do some maneuvers, split the colony into, move them into a spare box, and essentially we fool the bees into thinking they've actually swarmed when all they've done is moved 4 feet to the right, and then we stop them swarming. We stop the flying bees disappearing and eating all our honey that we want to jar up.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, Neil just says, well said there. So, that's fantastic. I love that. What a great, I mean, we want to be quite ambitious today, Martin and I, and to kind of make those joins between beekeeping, because Martin's a consummate beekeeper, and business processes, which Martin also does. So I hope we've kind of managed to make that join for you, and those kind of segues between various things, and just make this an interesting topic. And yeah, Martin, just wanted to say thank you very much for today's session. We're just going to come to your call to action in a moment, but just give you a quick round of applause while we're doing. Feel the love, Martin. Feel the love, Martin. Brilliant. So quickly, just looking at your call to action here, Martin. Now you do some training courses on SAP, and you've got this Finance Career Academy. Tell us a bit more about this, Martin, and what you're endeavouring to do here. See if we can help you in any way.
So over the years, working with lots of different SAP implementations, people often come to me and say, okay, we're interested to learn more about SAP, maybe implement it into our career, not even necessarily do a big change in career, but maybe just enhance what we're able to do by learning a bit more about the SAP product. So one of the key things I tell people to do is get yourself SAP certified. That's a really good key badge out in the marketplace, and it'll help you learn a lot more about the product itself. So I send people away and say, go and get yourself certified, and then they come back a couple of weeks later and say, oh, I've done some research, I've done some Googling, there's all kinds of things coming back at me for SAP training and courses, and it's really, really confusing. And it can be an absolute minefield out there. So what I decided to do is, okay, there wasn't anything out in the marketplace that I could really recommend people to get on. So I ended up building it myself, of course I did.
Well done.
So I've got this thing called the SAP Finance Career. And right at the very center of that is what I call my Rapid SAP Finance Certification Program.
Lovely.
So that essentially takes people who are interested in building up their SAP skills, and it takes them through a supported training program that takes them from SAP newbie, or maybe even don't know anything about SAP, and gets them certified. The gold standard SAP issued certification in that 12-week window.
12-week window, and I love the way you've replicated the the hexagon shape of the hive here, and this hive mind is even coming through on this graphic here. I'm loving that. And also that all these modules are all a bit like the new bee, going through the various departments, and you learn all the various modules in your finance certification program, which is a 12-week program, folks. So if that's something that you'd be interested in, please let Martin know. But also, if you know other people that might be interested in that, then let them know as well. So Martin gets something for that. So thank you, Martin, for an extraordinary contribution to our show this morning. We've absolutely loved having you talking about bees. Let's just quickly go to the moderator before we go elsewhere, and then we'll just wrap up the show. So Sarah, anything you want to finish up with there from in the feed?
No, I think we've covered all the feed.
Yeah,
Fascinating topic.
yeah.
To my mind, bees have got it sussed, and us in business, we do like to put obstacles in our way, don't we?
Bees have got it sussed. I love that. The final word from Sarah. That's absolutely brilliant. So thank you for that. And yeah, just a quick note on our ghost sponsor as well. So our show reel from our wonderful sponsor. Here we go, very briefly. And there we go. So yeah, and Ghost are just a great group of innovative thinkers and forward thinkers about branding. And if there's anything that you want with your business to rebrand it, to refresh its image, then these guys are superb. They've certainly helped me with Leaders Live and PDX as well. Yeah, wonderful people and a great team. And actually, Sarah works for them as well. So there we go. Shout out for Ghost, our sponsors. And in terms of what I do, I run a big think. It's a sort of facilitation event, which is a fresh approach to team away days and about strategic planning and new thinking, new extraordinary thinking and extraordinary teamwork, which is what we've been talking about today. And really, this is about culture change and strategic planning and moving towards the future and having that kind of bee mentality, maybe, where we think more strategically and longer term about your business. So I do these very well, and they can be 1 or 2 days. So if your business needs a strategic planning date, please get in touch with me. And a quick one from Sarah, just on Leaders Live.
Yeah, just a reminder, obviously something a little bit different today. We do like to do things differently. You get so much more if you subscribe, so please do if you haven't. If you've enjoyed the show, tell all your friends.
Yeah.
Tell other people in business. How great would it be in the business networking to share? Actually, if you listen to Leaders Live, this is really helpful as well. It's all about collaboration. We all want to help each other.
Absolutely.
It is a free show. There's a lot of work that goes into it, so let's help spread the word. And also, if there's a topic that you would like covered that we haven't done already, pop it in the chat and we'll see what we can do.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sarah. Brilliant. Well said. And the goose for next week, folks, the goose for next week, next Tuesday slot at 24th of October at 8:45 a.m. UK time. We'll be hanging out with our other sponsor, Kathy Heath, CEO of Healthy Minds Club. And our theme will be the roadmap to a healthy mind. And we think you're going to love this. So be there or be square. And we're going to shout out, we're going to close out to our outro now. Thank you very much for joining in today. Apologies for the audio. It was a little bit dodgy this morning. So that's just what happens when we go live sometimes, folks. So apologies for that. And here's our outro closer. Cheers for now, and we'll wave you goodbye from here. Cheers, everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you again, Martin, for an extraordinary conversation, mate. Absolutely brilliant. And thanks to Sarah for our moderating, and thanks for you all joining in and making this a wonderful show. See you again next week for another awesome, groovy show, folks. Cheers for now. Bye-bye for now. Cheers now, everybody. Bye-bye. Thank you very much. And there we go.